Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Under the Surface. I am one of your hosts, Riley, and I'm going to be going solo in this episode. Unfortunately, Daniel could not be here to record with me. Things in life are crazy right now, but we will be going back to recording together in future episodes, and hopefully soon we'll have another one out. So, sorry for the lack of uploads recently, both in the podcast and with the normal uploads to the channel. Life has been absolutely crazy, both for Daniel and I. It's busy season for both of us in our careers. There's been a lot of personal stuff behind the scenes that's been going on, and there's other stuff like us having a church camp to attend that took up a lot of time. So a lot of stuff's been happening, but we are back. Life's starting to get back to normal, so we'll be hopefully back to uploads soon, both with the podcast and again with the normal videos on the channel. But with that being said, what are we going to explore on this specific episode of the podcast? Well, if you've been a follower of the podcast, you would know that we just finished our first series, and that is our broad overview of church history. So we just got done with that, and we are now transitioning into theology. Initially, we were just going to hop straight into theology and get right into the Trinity, which is the doctrine of God, because we felt like that was a great starting point for for theology. However, we started thinking about it and we realized if we're going to really cover on this podcast everything from top to bottom, then we should probably start not with diving straight into theology, but tackling what theology is and why it matters in the first place. And so that is going to be the goal of this episode. That is to answer those two questions. What is theology and why does it matter? So I'll have some more updates on the future content in the channel at the end, but for now, let's just dive straight into answering those questions. So first off, what is theology? Well, theology is essentially a word that comes from two different words, and that's theos and then logos. So theos is God, and theos rather, I don't know what I'm saying, Theos is God, and logos is the word or study. So combining these theos and logos, you get in English we could say theology. So it's the study of God is what theology is. So that's really all that theology is. Theology is the thinking about God, thinking about what God's plans are, thinking about things like justification, thinking like things like sanctification, glorification, the Trinity, baptism. Everything you can think of in regards to Christianity is engaging in theology. So that's the first thing that theology is simply thinking about God. It extends into a lot of other things, though. Theology extends into fields of things like exegesis or eisegesis and of the Holy Scriptures. It also plays in the fields like theology, and a lot of times theology heavily impacts things like apologetics or polemics or the general defending of one's faith, because what you're defending is your theology. So what you're defending in apologetics or polemics is directly tied to your theology. So to kind of round all of this out, whenever we are talking about theology, essentially what we're talking about is your beliefs in regard to God and Christianity. That's why we can say things like, what is your theology on this topic? Essentially, that is essentially what is your conclusions through your studies of God on this particular topic. So the holistic answer to what is theology is it's studying about God, and it is studying about Christianity in general and your beliefs on that, and it ties into things like apologetics and polemics. I know even that rounded out answer is not simple, but that's the simplest answer I can give while also maintaining all the different aspects of theology. And some would argue that's not even a sufficient answer, because theology is a complex topic, a very complex topic that, again, hits many different areas of study. So to try and sum it up in just a single sentence just isn't really going to work. Other than just saying theology is studying about God, is thinking about God. And I think that's the simplest way to put it. So before we get into why it matters, I think the last point that needs to be made is that some people think of theologians or of theology as something that only the smart people are supposed to do. Only the people engaged in scholarship, only your elders of your congregation need to be concerned with theology. Only your preacher, whatever it may be, and that's just not the case. A lot of people will. I would argue everybody is a theologian to some extent, just like some people say everybody's a philosopher to some extent. I would argue that if you're Christian, everybody is a theologian to some extent. You'll see sometimes a lot of people will say, "Well, I don't need theology. I just need a relationship with God or relationship with Jesus." But ironically, that is itself a theological statement about what you need in regards to God, right? The same way that some people say, well, philosophy is pointless, I don't need philosophy, that is a philosophical statement in the realm of ethics and such, or value or worth, or you get what I mean. So that's why you can't really escape theology if you're a Christian. You are a theologian whether or not you like it or not. The question is, if you realize that you are a theologian no matter what, are you going to submit yourself to trying to be a good one, or are you going to be a bad one? And what separates those two is how seriously they take theology and how seriously they take their so-called relationship with God, to put it the simplest I can. How seriously are you going to take studying about God and understanding his holy scriptures that he's passed down to us and what he wants for us, his will, and all sorts of things? How seriously are you going to take that? That's going to separate whether or not you're a good theologian or you're a bad one. But now that that's kind of summarized, and I know that there's of course other things that make you a good or bad theologian. I'm just trying to I'm trying to do a simple overview of this. But now that that's kind of all gone over, and we've kind of gone over what theology is and what theologian is, I think it's really important now that we shift into why it matters in the first place. So, again, this is going to be a shorter podcast episode. There's a lot that can be discussed here, but I think for the purposes of what we're going to get into, I don't think it's important to go super in depth. So, why does theology matter? Once you recognize that everybody is a theologian, and once you understand and recognize what theology is at the core, why does theology even matter? Well, the first thing I can think of right off the bat is that right belief leads to right action. What you believe is going to affect how you act, so you better hope that what you're believing in regards to God is correct, so it leads to correct action in regards to God. So, what you believe in regards to theology is going to affect how you spread the gospel. It's going to affect the life you live. It's going to affect the God you follow at the core. It's going to affect the truth you spread in regards to the gospel and through the spreading of God's truth. It's going to affect a lot, right? For example, I just said that it's going to affect the God you follow. Whether or not you hold to a different one model of the Trinity versus the other, like the monarchical view of the Trinity compared to the filioque, or the conciliar, which is, I guess, the monarchical, basically the same thing, compared to the filioque, is going to change how you view God in the first place, and maybe how you explain things to people when they have a question, because that's going to have major implications for how you say answer an objection, or how you answer a question from somebody. So your theology is going to be directly tied to how you act, or how you do things like, again, spread the truth. And so because of that, I think it's really important to understand that having a view of theology is going to be directly tied to how you live your life. And one way I can think about this, and again, we try to stay pretty neutral on this podcast. We're trying to really just give a general overview of theology, so that we encourage you to go look deeper into it. But sometimes I just have to be honest, and I think a lot of people will, especially on the point I'm about to make, will understand what I'm trying to get at. Just recently, there was a debate between NeedGod.net and Trent Horn, and they did it on they did it on once saved, always saved. Can a Christian lose their salvation or forsake their salvation? In that debate, especially in the cross-examination, Trent Horn was really hammering NeedGod.net. I can't remember his real name, so I'm gonna have to say that I can't remember his name. On things about, essentially, is it possible for a Christian to do these sins and still be saved if they truly trust in Jesus, right? So he was saying if a person truly trusts in Jesus, can they murder a person every month and still go to heaven? And essentially, if the once saved, always saved free grace position is that if they truly trust in Jesus, then it doesn't matter that they're murdering the people, they can still go to heaven, right? So that understanding may heavily impact how you live your life, right? If you hold to that belief, maybe you believe that doing this sin or that sin won't affect your salvation, right? And so because of that, it may truly affect how you live your life. And so that type of stuff, even that seeming that one, I guess, simple, even though it's not really simple, question will affect heavily how you go about living your life and how you view sin and salvation, and which again affects your life in the long run. So that is a really good example of how your belief will affect your actions, and why it's really important then to have right belief, which will lead to right action. And again, the debate then comes up on which theology is that right belief. So that's the first and main point, is that right belief leads to right action, and that's why theology matters. The other reason theology matters is just in general because growing in knowledge about God, especially like philosophical or analytic or transcendental knowledge of God, so essentially knowing of or about Him, makes you appreciate Him more, and is also a very, very important part of Christianity. We should always grow to strive to learn more about God, right? We should always strive to want to deepen our knowledge in regard to God, because He is the creator of all, the Lord of Lords, King of Kings, right? He is the foundational bedrock of reality. It is very important that we understand Him, because if we understand Him better, we can better have a relationship with Him or with His church that He established, right? And so, in doing so, you really come to appreciate, in studying about and learning about God and His attributes and everything, you really do come to, I guess, recognize His true glory, the true honor of Him. You'll realize how much He contributes to us, how amazing things like His gift of grace it to us really is, and things like the incarnation, which is God the Son becoming man and suffering, living a life as man, and then suffering and dying on the cross for our sins. As you learn more about the true power of God and the true complexity of Him, you come to appreciate the incarnation in, I think, a manner that you never will if you haven't studied theology. I don't know if I said that right, but essentially, if you don't study theology, you will never come to a certain appreciation of things like the incarnation. You'll never come to understand just how truly amazing it is. Not to say that people don't appreciate the incarnation even if they don't study theology, but I think there is something to be said to the feeling you will have towards the true humility it took for God the Son to become man and suffer and die for us, when you truly understand what it means that He was God. Like, because so much we say that in passing. Oh yeah, God, came down and suffered and died for us and was rose 3 days later. Yeah, it's cool. No, 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 no. You don't understand how crazy that is, right? That is a statement that shook the entire world. That's a statement that not even the apostles could understand, right? Because they were confused. They thought that they didn't know what was going on, right? They always had the expectation that the Messiah would be somebody who would have an earthly kingdom. That's why they're arguing about who would sit at His right hand, and that's why whenever he died, they were so confused and they rushed to His tomb 3 days later to see it empty, right? Because they had a fundamental misunderstanding of of how God could possibly become man and die for us, right? So I think that's another really important thing, because the incarnation is so important, and I think respecting it and understanding it is incredibly important to our spiritual understanding, our spiritual life. Another thing that I kind of touched on earlier is that your right theology, or getting your theology straight, will greatly help how you defend your beliefs. It'll transform how you defend your beliefs, whether it be to other denominational ideas, other Christian ideas, other religious ideas, like, for example, defending your beliefs against Islam or Judaism or whatever religion there may be, or defending your Christian beliefs against atheists or agnostics, right? How your theology is greatly going to shape how you do that, because if somebody asks a question about a certain topic or makes an objection against a certain topic in Christianity, what your theology is regarding that topic is directly going to affect how you answer that objection or how effective you are at answering that objection, right? If we're not theologically and philosophically informed on that given subject, we may answer poorly. And so I think it's really important that you understand theology and you respect theology for that purpose, because it is a very important thing to understand and to take note of, especially. So next, why theology matters. This is going to seem pretty easy or pretty simple, or maybe dumb to include here, but it's very true. Understanding theology helps you to actively search out what is true theologically, right? So if you don't study theology, you may be set in your beliefs for 40 years in the same church and never change and never shift into your beliefs. And I think that if you've done that, then I think you truly haven't challenged yourself, right? So there's been many things, even over the past few years, where theologically I've changed my mind, right? I've said on the channel before that I hold to the conciliar Trinity. I did not do that. I didn't do that initially. I held to the filioque because that was natural, because I've grown up in a Western church setting. However, after a lot of study, both in Scripture, outside of Scripture, debates, and doing a lot of understanding, I think that I've come to realize that I think the conciliar Trinity, or the monarchical Trinitarian model, is clearly the one that is correct. Theology also is going to it's beyond that. It's going to also affect other things, like your view of atonement, which again is going to tie directly into the incarnation. And so when you're really challenging yourselves in these perspectives, you're going to be finding that you're actively pursuing that which is true. Now, you may come to a conclusion that other people don't agree with you that is true, but what matters is that you're actually testing yourself and you're actually challenging yourself. The worst thing that we can do is stand on our high hill and refuse to change our theological positions no matter what people say, right? So many times you'll watch debates online, and sometimes you can imagine watching debates and being like, this is pointless, man. Neither of these people are ever going to change because they're not open-minded. That's the problem. When you're open-minded, you're going to find that you're going to become more strong in the positions that you hold to, or B, that you're going to be glad that you're open-minded, because you may come to a conclusion that you held to a position that wasn't true. And so essentially, again, just to say it one more time, doing theology really is going to help you to actively search out what is true theologically. The last the last point I have for why theology matters is, again, directly tied to this previous one, is it's also going, besides just helping you search out what is true theologically, it's also going to help you avoid what is bad theologically. For example, things like the prosperity gospel. By understanding theology and really taking it seriously, you're going to be able to root out bad theology. There's a lot of sects, quote unquote, of Christianity that claim to be Christian that in reality aren't. Imagine, for example, Mormonism. Mormonism is a great one. Nobody within Christianity considers them to be Christians. They consider themselves to be Christians. Understanding theology will help you to it will help you to explain why Mormonism, for example, is not a correct theological position to hold. I'm not an expert on Mormonism whatsoever. It's something I want to do a lot of research on, again, because I have to be open. But I do have my reasons that I'm not Mormon, right? But if I wasn't involved in theology, wasn't involved in philosophy, say this is me 6 years ago, what reasons would I have for why Mormonism, in my opinion, is not true? I wouldn't have any, because I wouldn't have even understood what Mormons believe in the first place, right? So again, theology is not only going to help you search out what is good, it's going to help you also avoid what is bad. It's going to help you hone in your arguments. It's going to help you understand what you believe. It's going to help you defend what you believe. It's going to do so much. In summary, Theology is the study of God. A theologian is anybody who does thinking or studying about God. Whether or not you're a good theologian or a bad theologian is the only thing that puts you on that spectrum. The theology helps you to obtain right beliefs, which will lead, hopefully, to right action. It'll help you to grow in appreciation for God and in knowledge of God. It'll help you defend your beliefs. It'll help you to actively search out what is true, and it will help you to avoid what is bad. So those are the reasons we had for why theology matters. If you have any other reasons that are interesting, please leave them down below. We'd be really happy to see any discussion on this topic or to see any other reasons why theology is so important, because, I mean, I'd like to see reasons, more reasons. I'm sure other people watching would also like to have more reasons if they can. So please leave your suggestions down below if you do have any. So getting quickly back to the updates on future content for this channel before we close out. The next big video I have that's not related to the podcast will hopefully be coming out not this next weekend, but the weekend after. I can't remember what the dates of that weekend are. And it will be the video that I've been hinting at for a bit now, and that is the video on grace, which is going to be a very controversial video. I'm not sure how long it's going to be. After I set up teleprompter and everything and start reading it off, it probably is going to be around an hour to an hour and a half long. So be ready for that. It's going to be pretty intensive. It's going to be a lot of editing, unfortunately, but hey, you got to do what you got to do. So I'm very excited for that. Just stay tuned for that. It's going to be hopefully pretty great, and I'm excited to see everybody's reaction to it. As for the podcast, the next episode of the podcast that is going to be releasing is the podcast on the Trinity. And then after that, we're going to do an podcast on baptism. And that one is, hopefully, if everything works out, going to have a special guest that I think you guys are going to be pretty excited for. So stay tuned for that as well. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching another episode of the podcast. If you liked it, please leave a like down below. If you thought it was worthy of being shared, please share it. Really appreciate all the support that we get. And again, if you have any other thoughts, please leave them in the comments down below. We'd love to see them. Anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for watching yet again, and I hope that you have a very blessed day.